Hello, as always, I'm Cosmic, and today on this episode of Early Access Examination, we're going to be taking a look at Fallen A2P Protocol. Fallen is a tactical turn-based strategy game with RPG elements, being developed by Argentinian independent studio Red Katana. Fallen is set in a Mad Max-style post-apocalyptic wasteland, which contains various factions, raiders, and strange people. It has to be said right at the start that the game is very early alpha and it is very rough around the edges. The game, as you might expect, is not feature complete and is still full of placeholders. The game clearly draws inspiration from games like XCOM and Fallout, with the setting and the mechanics trying to be kind of a mix of both. You'll notice straight away that the character models, while they are not bad aesthetically, suffer from poor animations and basically look constipated when they walk or run. The game suffers from quite a few animation and graphical bugs throughout, which is something that will hopefully be stabilised as development goes on. The combat works around an action point system. Each character has a number of AP to use each turn, and each available action, unless otherwise specified, will use up a certain number of AP points. Should you use all your AP points on movement, you will not be able to attack, and there is no way to undo a finalised move command, so be sure to plan carefully. To those familiar with turn-based combat games, getting into Fallen's combat will literally be second nature. The game employs a cover system in combat that seems to work for the most part currently in early access. Mind you, the character animations don't always respond to being in cover. Small crates and such will provide half cover, and larger objects will provide full cover, giving more defensive bonuses. As with other games, the cover system works from a line of sight, so if an enemy should flag you, you will not receive the cover bonuses. What I do like about Fallen's combat is that unlike XCOM, where your weapons tend to have an unlimited supply of ammo, in Fallen you don't. If you run out of ammo, the best thing to do is to turn to your trusty melee weapon. Failing that, of course, all is not lost. If your character only has a ranged weapon, Fallen employs a battle loot mechanic. This means that not only can you loot enemy corpses in battle for items such as ammo, but some containers around the battlefield can also be scavenged for items too. These loot mechanics reinforce the post-apocalyptic setting by having to use whatever you can find to survive, and it is actually quite a fun mechanic and something that I think that they can build upon to a really good extent. Now, like I said, the animations are a bit of a problem at the moment, and they do make the ranged and melee combats look somewhat unimpressive. The game is very unbalanced currently, so expect to have strange instances happen, like a crossbow bolt one hitting your main character on the tutorial level. Yes, that did happen to me. In fact, the game is so unbalanced at this early stage that it's hard to take much enjoyment from the combat. Hilariously, I encountered something which I assume is a bug, whereby if I right clicked on the battlefield, a loot box would spawn with some of the best weapons in the game. You would have thought that right clicking would be a good deselect button, but apparently it just turns you into a loot god. For me, the biggest issue in the game and what spoils the game the most in its current form is the UI. It is shockingly bad and completely unintuitive. Take XCOM Enemy Unknown's UI. It's sleek, it flows well, and it's minimalist. Compare it to the current UI of Fallen, and it's the complete opposite. It's too big, it's clunky, it takes up a huge segment of the screen, and the key bindings are bad and sometimes don't even work, and the game can't often decide whether they want you to click only or use the keyboard. It doesn't want to make its mind up. Ultimately, it is an absolute mess. It's at best confusing, and at worst it's game hampering. I don't think the UI could be improved enough with iterations of the current one to make it work, and in my opinion it needs a complete overhaul to be good enough for the final release. Each character has abilities that can be unlocked via progression, as well as general abilities that are available to all. These abilities will cost varying amounts of AP to be used, and usually thus far consist of melee and ranged attacks. These abilities are particularly useful against larger forces, and as such, timeless classes like Overwatch always come in handy when you're being on the defensive. After a battle, your character will gain the experience points earned in that battle, and you'll be taken to the world map. From this map you can move your caravan to any of the unlocked locations such as mission sites. You can also from here go to your caravan screen, where basically you do all your inventory management and leveling up. You can outfit your characters with whatever they have on them in their inventory, or place items in the main storage of the caravan to switch items between characters, or just keep them there for safekeeping. Leveling up your characters is a very simple process that requires you just to assign the earned skill points to the various trees on the character progression screen. There are both active and passive skills to unlock, and each tree offers something unique in combat. The character progression does allow you to mould your characters into the fighters that you want, so you can specialise a character in melee for example, or keep one as a medic, or keep one as a ranged DPS, etc, etc. It's relatively flexible, but at the same time there's not a great amount of depth to it, so if you're looking for really in-depth character customization, at the moment it isn't there. Now like I've said, the game is in alpha and its current content available is not feature complete, and the features that are in the game often don't work properly, but there is around several hours worth of content to do in the current early access. The story thus far is okay, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense without context. It doesn't join up well, and the writing does seriously need to be improved, but I will forgive it at this early stage. I hope that they will put some interesting content in the final release for the world map, such as like a ton of side quests, interesting locales to explore, and a lot more loot so that you can really customize your characters in both armor and weapons. For me, I think that this game is a definite wait and see. I don't think you should buy it now. I certainly like the concept of the game, and I feel that if the devs vastly improve the balancing, animations, the UI, etc, etc, then it would be worth a more in-depth look. But at the moment the game is in a very rough state, but it does have potential and promise. It's one of those that it could go either way in my opinion, so only time will tell. So I think it's best to hold off for now until possibly a very late alpha, probably early beta. Take another look at it, see what the forums are saying, see what the reviews are saying. I'll probably take another look later in development to see how it's progressing, if it's progressing into a good game or not. So that is Fallen A2P Protocol. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Do like, subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you next time.